Listen, do you hear it? The relentless drumming of rain against the pane. It's a sound that washes the world clean. It also summons shadows from their deepest recesses, blurring the line between the real and the dreadfully imagined. Welcome, bravest souls, to Nightmare True Horror, the sanctuary for those who find a perverse comfort in the chill of the unknown. Tonight, we unfurl 7 true tales, each born from the heart of a storm-lashed night. Stories where the downpour was not a cleanser, but a harbinger of terror. As these narratives seep into your consciousness, what chilling memories, what primal fears does the sound of rain awaken in you? Let the darkness in the comments below bear witness to your thoughts. Share the echoes of your own rainy night anxieties. And if you wish to continue these journeys into the macabre with us, ensure you are subscribed, lest you miss the whispers from the void that we so meticulously curate. Steel yourselves, for this is a particularly potent collection of terror. You are about to witness horrors that are all too real. And trust me, you'll want to brave the storm with us until the very end, for the most chilling revelations often come when you least expect them. Let the deluge begin. The storm rolled in just as the sun set, dark clouds swirling like a maelstrom above my little house in the woods. Rain hammered against the windows, a relentless percussion that drowned out the world outside. I had planned a cozy evening in pajamas, takeout, and a movie marathon. The power went out shortly after the first roll of thunder, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled through the kitchen drawer for candles, lighting them one by one until the flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the walls. The wind howled outside, and I could hear branches scratching against the roof like skeletal fingers. I settled onto the couch with my phone, scrolling through social media. Most posts were about the storm, but one caught my attention. A news alert about an escaped psychiatric patient. The report mentioned a man in his 30s with a history of violence, last seen near my area. My stomach twisted. The storm intensified, the rain lashing against the house like an angry beast. I tried to shake off my unease, focusing instead on the comfort of my blanket and the glow of the candlelight. Just as I was about to start my first movie, a loud, persistent knock echoed through the house. I froze. The knock came again. Thud, thud, louder this time, reverberating through the walls. My heart raced. Who could be out here in this weather? I glanced toward the window, but the rain obscured any view of the outside. I crept toward the door, my mind racing. "Hello?" I called, trying to sound braver than I felt. No answer. The knocking resumed, more insistent. I peered through the peephole, squinting against the darkness and rain. A figure stood on the porch, drenched, hair plastered to their face. I couldn't make out any features, but I could see the outline of a jacket, the glint of something metallic in their hand. "Please, I need help." The voice was muffled, but desperate. A young man's voice. "My car broke down. I just need to use your phone." The news report flashed through my mind. I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me. "I'm sorry. I can't help you," I shouted back, stepping away from the door. "Please, I'm really scared. I don't want to be out here." His voice cracked with urgency. The knocking resumed, louder now, as if he were trying to break down the door. I backed away, my heart pounding in my ears. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows, making the room feel smaller, more claustrophobic. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling, as I dialed 911. The line buzzed and crackled, but no one answered. I cursed under my breath, my mind racing. I had to get out of this situation. The knocking stopped suddenly. A heavy silence settled over the house, broken only by the sound of rain. I held my breath, waiting. Maybe he'd given up. Maybe. A quiet voice, barely above a whisper, floated through the door. "Please, I just want to come in." I felt my stomach drop. I couldn't let him in. I couldn't trust him. But what if he was really in trouble? What if he had no one else? The thought twisted in my mind, pulling at my conscience. I took a deep breath and moved back to the peephole, peering out again. The figure stood there, still drenched, but now his hands were raised, palms outward, in a gesture of surrender. "I'm not a threat," he said softly. "I just want to get out of the rain." I hesitated, my heart racing, weighing my options. I could call the police again. Maybe they'd come this time. But what if I waited too long? What if he was genuinely in distress? Please. I'm not dangerous. He begged again. I just need shelter for a moment. Then, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the room. I felt a brief sense of relief, but it was short-lived. The man straightened, his attention drawn to the window just behind me. My heart sank as I realized the light cast my shadow on the glass, a dark silhouette against the brightened interior. "Come on," he urged. "Let me in. I won't hurt you. I swear." I turned, moving instinctively away from the door. My mind raced through memories of horror movies where the unsuspecting victims let in the wrong person. I had to be smart about this. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash from the back of the house. My heart leaped into my throat. I rushed toward the noise. But as I reached the kitchen, I saw that the window had shattered, shards of glass scattered across the floor. A gust of wind sent the curtain billowing in, the rain splattering onto the tiles. The man outside took a step closer to the door. "What was that? Are you okay?" I didn't answer, frozen in place as I glanced back toward the door, then toward the shattered window. My mind raced. I needed to get out of this house. I needed to escape. The man's voice grew more urgent. "I heard that. Are you hurt? Let me help you." I backed away from the door and the broken window, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I needed to think. I needed to act. "Stay away from the door," I shouted. "I'll call the police." The man's expression darkened. "I told you I'm not dangerous. This is just a misunderstanding. You can't be alone in here." The shouting made me jump. "You don't know how dangerous it is out there. You don't know what's in these woods." I couldn't tell if he was just trying to get in or if he was genuinely scared. I could feel the tension building, the fear spiraling as I weighed my options. Then, the lights flickered again and went out, plunging me back into darkness. I felt for the wall, trying to steady myself, the shadows dancing wildly around me. Panic surged as I realized I was completely alone with no way to call for help. "Let me in," he shouted again, the knocking resuming. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to be safe." The panic in his voice only heightened my fear, but I couldn't ignore the growing sense of urgency. "Please, just go away," I shouted back, my voice breaking with desperation. Suddenly, the door handle rattled. "I'm coming in," he yelled, voice cracking. "You don't want to see what happens when you ignore someone in distress." The sound of heavy footsteps approached the door. My heart raced as I backed away, searching for something, anything, I could use to defend myself. My mind raced through the options: the kitchen knife, the heavy frying pan. I turned to grab the pan from the stove, just as the door burst open, the hinges splintering. The man stood in the doorway, water streaming down his face, eyes wild with fear and desperation. "You can't leave me out here," he screamed. I swung the frying pan instinctively, connecting with his shoulder. He stumbled back, eyes wide with shock. "What the hell? Get away from me!" I shouted, adrenaline fueling my every move. I rushed past him, darting toward the back of the house, but he grabbed my arm, yanking me back. I felt the panic bubble over as I kicked backward, catching him in the knee. He cursed, releasing me, but I didn't stop. I dashed through the living room, heading for the back door, praying it was still unlocked. His footsteps thundered behind me, echoing in the tight space. "You can't run from me," he shouted. I burst through the back door and into the rain, slipping on the mud as I sprinted toward the trees. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away from him. But the rain was relentless, the darkness swallowing me whole. I stumbled over roots and fallen branches, my heart pounding in my ears. I could hear him behind me, his breath heavy, the sound of his footsteps growing closer. "Stop!" he yelled. "I just want to talk." I didn't respond, pushing through the underbrush, branches whipping against my face. The woods felt alive, shadows closing in around me. I could see flashes of movement, but I couldn't tell if they were real or just my imagination. Suddenly, I tripped over a tree root and fell hard to the ground. The wind knocked out of me. I scrambled to my feet, but he was there, looming over me, eyes wild and desperate. "Please, just listen," he begged, hands raised. "I'm not going to hurt you." But I wasn't listening. I swung the frying pan again, aiming for his head, but he caught my wrist, twisting it painfully. The pan clattered to the ground, and I gasped in pain, panic surging through me. "Why won't you just talk?" he shouted, his grip tightening. "You don't understand what's out here." I had to think fast. "Get off me," I screamed, fading weakness. I dropped to my knees, pulling him down with me. Instinctively, I reached for the broken branch beside me, swinging it toward him with all my strength. The branch connected with his jaw, and he cried out, staggering back. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline propelling me forward once again. I dashed into the woods, heedless of where I was going, only aware of the need to escape. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs felt like lead. The rain soaked me to the bone, the world around me a blur of shadows and sound. I stumbled upon a small clearing, heart racing, and collapsed against a tree, trying to catch my breath. But the silence was deafening, punctuated only by the steady thrum of rain. I listened, straining for any sign of him. Was he still following? Was he still following? Had he given up? Then I heard it, a low, rumbling laughter echoing through the trees. The sound sent chills down my spine. He was out there somewhere watching me. "Come on," he called, voice dripping with mockery. "You can't hide forever." Panic surged as I realized I had no idea where I was. The trees loomed ominously, shadows stretching and shifting in the dim light. I pushed away from the tree, forcing my legs to move, searching for a way out. I stumbled upon a small abandoned cabin, its door hanging off its hinges. It looked like it hadn't seen life in years. Broken windows, a sagging roof. I ducked inside, praying it would provide some shelter. The cabin was dark and musty, filled with the scent of decay. I crouched in a corner, heart hammering in my chest, trying to listen for any signs of him. The rain drummed against the roof, drowning out every sound except my own ragged breathing. Then I heard it. A creak on the floorboards. Heavy footsteps approaching the cabin. My stomach dropped as I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The door swung open, revealing a dark silhouette outlined by the rain. He stepped inside, shaking off droplets as he scanned the room. "You can't keep running. This is pointless." I clutched a broken chair leg, my makeshift weapon ready to fight. "Get away from me." He stepped closer, unfazed. "I just want to help you. You don't understand what's out there." As he approached, the shadow shifted, and I caught a glimpse of his face, twisted in desperation. I could see the wildness in his eyes, the sweat running down his forehead. "Please," he pleaded, hands raised. "You have to listen. This isn't just about us anymore. You're crazy," I shouted, swinging the chair leg wildly. He dodged, my makeshift weapon barely missing his head. "You'll know what they'll do if they find you out here. We need to stick together." His words struck me, resonating deep within my gut. I couldn't let my guard down, but something in his voice made me hesitate, doubt creeping into my mind. "Who's they?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Those who wander these woods. They don't take kindly to trespassers, and you've wandered right into their territory." He stepped closer again, eyes wide with urgency. "We have to leave, now." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. An eerie silence enveloped the cabin, replaced by the low growl of something beyond the walls. "What was that?" I whispered, fear creeping back in. "Just the wind," he said quickly, but his eyes darted toward the door. "We need to go now." With no other choice, I followed him out of the cabin, glancing back nervously. But as we stepped into the rain-soaked forest, I realized we were no longer alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, stepping into the rain from the trees. Dark shapes, their faces obscured by hoods and shadows. They moved with purpose, surrounding us, closing in. "Get away from her," my captor shouted, stepping in front of me. The figures seemed to grin beneath their hoods, a sickening darkness in their eyes. "You shouldn't have come here," one hissed, voice low and menacing. "You should have stayed away." I felt the weight of fear settle in my stomach. The rain poured down harder, washing away any hope of escape. I was trapped between two worlds. One man desperate to protect me, and a group of shadows that seemed to revel in my fear. As the darkness closed in, I clutched the broken chair leg, my last line of defense. But as the figures advanced, I understood that this was no longer about survival. It was about sacrifice. "Run!" my captor screamed, shoving me toward the trees. I bolted into the underbrush, branches scratching my face, the rain mixing with tears as I fled. Behind me, I heard the sounds of struggle, shouts, and the thud of bodies hitting the ground. I ran and ran until my lungs burned and my legs threatened to give out. The forest blurred around me, each tree a specter of my fear. I didn't look back, couldn't look back, until I stumbled into a clearing illuminated by faint moonlight. I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, shaking uncontrollably. But the quiet was deceptive. I could still hear murmurs in the distance. Those figures still searching for me. As dawn broke, I found my way back to the main road, collapsing in front of a passing car. The driver, a woman with kind eyes, rushed to help. She called for the police, and I began to tell my story. But when they arrived, there was no evidence of the struggle, no bodies, no signs of the figures that had pursued me. Just the dark woods, silent once more. Days turned into weeks, and the police investigation yielded nothing. The only thing they found was my broken chair leg, and it was left behind. I still hear the whispers in my dreams, feel the weight of their eyes watching me. I never returned to those woods, but sometimes I wonder if they still linger there, waiting for the next lost soul to wander into their territory. And I know that deep down I was never really safe, because the darkness is patient, and it always remembers. The rain drummed against my windshield in an endless barrage as I navigated the winding backroads of rural Georgia. My headlights carved twin tunnels through the darkness, illuminating the shimmer of water on asphalt, and not much else. I'd stayed too late at my sister's place in Athens, celebrating her engagement with champagne I shouldn't have had before the 2-hour drive back to Atlanta. Now the clock on my dashboard read 11:42 p.m., and I was taking the scenic route, Highway 15 instead of the interstate, hoping the focus required by the country roads would keep me alert. The radio had dissolved into static 20 minutes ago. Cell service had disappeared shortly after. Just me and the rain and the occasional glimpse of distant farmhouse lights through the pines. My wipers struggled against the downpour, creating a hypnotic rhythm that matched the pounding in my temples. The corners came faster here, each bend revealing another stretch of empty road that looked identical to the last. I wasn't lost, exactly, but fatigue had blurred the mental map I'd constructed. That's when my headlights caught him. A figure burst from the tree line to my right, arms waving frantically. I slammed on the brakes, hydroplaning slightly before the tires caught hold. My heart hammered against my ribs as the car skidded to a stop, mere feet from the man standing in my lane. He was soaked through, jeans plastered to his legs, a once white t-shirt, now translucent and clinging to his chest. No jacket despite the October chill. His hair was matted to his skull, water streaming down his face like tears. But it was his expression that made my breath catch, pure, naked desperation. "Help!" He mouthed the word, then shouted it, the sound barely penetrating the drumming rain and sealed windows. "Please." Everything I'd ever learned about stranger danger flashed through my mind. The isolated road, the impossible darkness, the way my headlights caught an odd glint in his eyes, something animal-like and hungry. But then his face crumpled in despair, and I saw something else, genuine terror. I rolled my window down a crack, just enough to hear him. My truck went off the road. His words tumbled out between gasps. "My kid's trapped. Please, I can't lift it myself." My fingers hovered over the door lock button. The smart move would be to call 911, but my phone showed no bars. What if he was telling the truth? What if a child was dying while I sat there, warm and safe in my Toyota? "I'll call for help at the next house," I offered, voice steadier than I felt. "There's no time." His desperation escalated, palms slapping against my window. "She's pinned under the truck. She's not breathing right." Something in me relented. I nodded, reaching for my phone anyway, hoping for a miracle signal. "Where's your truck?" Relief washed over his face as he pointed toward the tree line he'd emerged from. "Just down the embankment, maybe 50 yards. I put the car in park but kept the engine running, hazards flashing in the downpour." As I reached for the door handle, the man circled around to the passenger side. "I'll get in and direct you," he said, moving toward the rear door instead of the front passenger door. His fingers wrapped around the back door handle and pulled. The locked door held firm. A chill that had nothing to do with the rain crawled up my spine. Why the back door? Why not the passenger seat beside me? Our eyes met through the rain-streaked window. His desperation had vanished, replaced by something flat and calculating. For 3 heartbeats, neither of us moved. Then I saw it, the glint of metal in his other hand, partially concealed against his leg. A knife or something similar, catching the red pulse of my hazard lights. My foot hit the gas before conscious thought formed. The tires spun on the wet pavement before gaining purchase, and the car lurched forward. In my rearview mirror, I saw him stumbling after me, no longer pretending to be a desperate father. His face had transformed into something feral, mouth twisted in a snarl. The road ahead curved sharply, and I took it too fast, feeling the car fishtail before straightening out. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, my breath coming in short gasps. I drove nearly 5 miles before I dared to slow down, constantly checking the mirrors for headlights or the silhouette of a man where no man should be. When I finally spotted the glow of a gas station ahead, I nearly cried with relief. The fluorescent lights hummed as I parked directly beneath them, hands shaking so badly I fumbled the key 3 times before managing to shut off the engine. The attendant, a heavy-set man in his 60s with kind eyes, listened to my breathless story before calling the sheriff. "You're the 4th one this month," he said quietly, sliding a cup of coffee across the counter, though the first smart enough not to unlock the door. Deputy Collins arrived 15 minutes later, rainwater dripping from his hat as he took my statement. His weathered face remained impassive, but something in his eyes hardened when I mentioned the back door. "They work in pairs," he explained, setting his coffee down. "One plays distressed victim on the road, gets you to stop, tries to get in the back seat. Once you're focused on him, the second one comes at you from the other side or from behind. We found 2 bodies last summer. Same mow, same stretch of road." My hands trembled around the styrofoam cup. "Did you ever catch them?" "Not yet. But we're close." He glanced at the rain-slicked darkness beyond the windows. "You gave a good description, better than most. They usually target women driving alone, play on that helping instinct." I followed him outside, where he examined my car, noting the muddy handprints on my rear window. "You're lucky," he said finally. "Very lucky." The drive home behind Deputy Collins' cruiser was a blur. I kept replaying the moment. The man's fingers on my back door handle, the shift in his eyes when he realized it was locked. What would have happened if I'd opened that door? If I'd stepped out into the rain to help? 3 days later, I received a call from Deputy Collins. They found a pickup truck hidden half a mile into the woods off Highway 15. Inside were personal effects belonging to 2 missing persons from the previous month. No bodies. Not yet. But under the seat, they'd discovered a plastic bin containing zip ties, duct tape, and hunting knives. "We also found something else," Collins said, his voice carefully neutral. "A journal, detailed plans, Polaroids of previous victims." He paused, and I heard him take a breath. "And a list of license plates, cars they'd spotted driving the back roads alone at night." Another pause. "Your plate was on that list, circled, from 2 weeks ago." My blood turned to ice. 2 weeks ago. I'd been visiting my sister then too. They'd been watching me, planning. "Planning? We'll catch them," Collins promised. "But until then, take the interstate, even if it's longer." I hung up and stared out my apartment window at the Atlanta skyline, lights blurring through tears I hadn't realized were falling. Somewhere out there, they were still watching. Still waiting for the next rainy night, the next lone driver, the next good Samaritan who wouldn't be as lucky as me. I haven't driven alone at night since then, and I always check the back seat before I get into my car. Because sometimes the monsters don't hide under your bed. Sometimes they hide behind a desperate plea for help on a rainy Georgia back road, waiting for you to unlock your door. Rain hammered the windshield, each drop a tiny explosion in the dark. I gripped the steering wheel, squinting through the blur of water and the weak sweep of my wipers. The country road was a black ribbon, twisting through endless fields. No lights, no signs, just the storm and me. My phone was dead, the charger useless in the glove box. I was late for my sister's birthday dinner, and now I was lost, somewhere off Route 17 in upstate New York. A sharp curve came out of nowhere. My tires squealed, hydroplaning. The car lurched, skidded, and plunged off the road into a ditch. Moot sucked at the wheels, and the engine sputtered, then died. My heart pounded, breath fogging the cold glass. I was alone, soaked, stranded, Headlights pierced the rain. A tow truck, its yellow beacon spinning, materialized like it had been waiting. It rolled to a stop, engine growling. Relief washed over me, but something about the truck's sudden appearance prickled my skin. The driver's door opened, and a figure stepped out, silhouette sharp against the glare. He moved slowly, unbothered by the downpour, his boots crunching gravel. "You okay?" His voice was low, steady, cutting through the storm's roar. He was tall, late 40s, with a weathered face and eyes that didn't blink enough. His flannel shirt clung to him, soaked, and his hands were stained with grease. Or something darker. "Yeah, just skid it off," I said, forcing a smile. "Can you tow me?" He nodded, lips twitching into a half smile. "Hop in the cab. Warmer there." The tow truck's cab door creaked as I climbed in. The air inside was heavy, thick with a chemical tang. Bleach, maybe mixed with something sour. The seats were cracked vinyl, and a single air freshener dangled from the mirror, swaying like a hanged man. The locks clicked shut, loud and final. My stomach twisted. "Name's Carl," he said, sliding into the driver's seat. His hands rested on the wheel, knuckles scarred. "You're lucky I was out here." "Lucky," I echoed, my voice thin. The rain drummed the roof, a relentless tattoo. Carl didn't move to start the tow. He just sat there, staring out into the dark, his breathing slow and deliberate. A faint scratching came from behind the seat, like nails on metal. I froze. "What's that?" Carl's head tilted, but he didn't turn. "Just tools. They shift sometimes." His tone was too calm, like he'd rehearsed it. The scratching stopped, but now I noticed the cab's floor. Streaks of something dark, smeared into the grooves. I forced a laugh. "So, you do this a lot? Rescue people in storms?" His eyes flicked to me, cold and unreadable. "When they need it." He reached for the gear shift, but his sleeve rode up, revealing a tattoo, a coiled snake, its fangs bared. My pulse quickened. I'd seen that tattoo before, on a news report about missing hitchhikers. The truck lurched forward, hooking my car with a metallic groan. The radio crackled to life, spitting static and a garbled voice, like someone whispering underwater. "Carl didn't touch it." The voice faded, but the static buzzed, a low hum that burrowed into my skull. "Where are we going?" I asked, my mouth dry. "Shop's a few miles up," he said. "Got tools there. Fix you up." His fingers tapped the wheel, a slow rhythm, like a countdown. The road stretched on, empty, the storm swallowing any landmarks. My car trailed behind, a ghost in the tow chain's rattle. The chemical smell grew stronger, burning my throat. I glanced at the door handle, wondering if I could jump out. But the locks held firm. A soft thump came from the truck's bed. Not tools. Something heavier, like a body shifting. My breath caught. Carl's eyes darted to the rearview mirror, then back to the road. "Storm's bad," he muttered, almost to himself. "Makes things restless." I clutched my bag, feeling the weight of my keys inside. "Useless as a weapon, but better than nothing." "You get a lot of breakdowns out here?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "More than you'd think." His smile was back, thin and sharp. "People get careless. Don't watch the road." The truck slowed, turning onto a dirt path I hadn't noticed. Trees loomed, their branches clawing the sky. No signs, no lights, just darkness and the endless rain. The path narrowed, mud sucking at the tires. My car's headlights flickered in the tow, casting shadows that moved wrong, like figures darting between the trees. "Shop's closed," Carl said, but his voice had changed, tighter, eager. The scratching started again, louder from the truck's bed this time. Not tools, not animals, something alive. Panic clawed my chest. "I think I left my phone in the car," I lied. "Can we stop?" Carl's jaw tightened. "No need. You're safe with me." The word safe sounded like a threat. The truck stopped in a clearing, a ramshackle garage looming ahead. Its windows were boarded and a single bulb flickered above the door, buzzing like a dying insect. He killed the engine. Silence crashed in, broken only by the rain and that scratching, now a frantic skittering. Carl turned to me, his eyes glinting. "Stay here. I'll check your car." The second he stepped out, I lunged for the door, Locked. My hands shook as I fumbled with the window, but it wouldn't budge. The air freshener swayed, its pine scent choking. I tore it down and something fell from it. A Polaroid, yellowed and creased. A young woman stared back, her eyes wide with terror, duct tape over her mouth. My scream died in my throat. The truck's bed creaked, and a low moan drifted through the rain. A human sound, weak and desperate. Carl was at the garage now, unlocking a padlock with a key from his belt. The door swung open, revealing darkness and a faint glint of metal. Chains hanging from the ceiling. I jammed my keys into the lock mechanism, twisting wildly. It clicked. I shoved the door open and ran, mud sucking at my shoes. The rain blinded me, but I sprinted for the trees, heart hammering. Behind me, Carl's boots pounded the ground, his voice a low growl. "You can't run far." Branches tore at my skin as I plunged into the woods. The moan came again, closer, from the truck. Someone was alive back there. I stumbled, my foot catching a root, and fell hard. Carl's flashlight beam swept the trees, inches from me. I pressed myself into the mud, holding my breath. The beam passed. His footsteps faded toward the truck. I crawled forward, gasping, until I found a ditch to hide in. The rain masked my sobs, but not the sounds from the clearing. Metal clanging, a muffled cry, and Carl's voice, low and soothing, like he was calming a child. I waited, shivering, until the truck's engine roared to life. Headlights swept the woods, then faded. He was leaving. I stumbled back to the road, praying for another car, but the storm was my only company. My car was gone, towed away. So was the Polaroid. Hours later, a farmer found me, half conscious, and called the police. They searched the garage, finding bloodstains, chains, and a locked freezer with scratches inside. Carl was gone. His truck untraceable. The Polaroid girl was identified. A runaway, missing for months. Others were still unaccounted for. I drive a different route now, but every storm brings it back. The chemical smell, the scratching, that moan. Sometimes late at night I hear tires on gravel outside my house. I don't look out the window. I'm afraid I'll see a tow truck, its lights cutting through the rain, waiting. The rain wasn't falling. It was screaming. It hammered my windshield like fists, the wipers gasping. My headlights barely cut through the storm, but the glowing red sign ahead flickered like a distress signal. Gus's 24-hour gas. The lot was empty, pumps dark. I pulled in, my Honda's tires crunching over shattered glass. Inside the car, the silence felt wrong. No radio static, no engine tick, just my shaky breath fogging the glass. I stayed late at the hospital to finish charts. Third shift nursing pays the bills but murders the soul. Now midnight had bled into something darker. My phone blinked no service. Headlights flared in my rear view. A black SUV rolled in, parking 2 spaces away. No engine cut, no doors opened. The gas station's awning dripped a ragged curtain of water. I sprinted through it. The automatic doors jammed half open. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed like wasps. Empty chip bags skittered across the floor. No clerk. A coffee pot hissed. Burnt sludge crusted to its sides. "Hello?" My voice echoed off coolers full of expired soda. The SUV's doors finally thumped outside. 2 figures stepped out. Hoods up. Faces shadowed. A man and a woman, maybe. They moved in unison, methodical, checking each parked car, tugging door handles. I ducked behind a snack rack. Peanut dust stuck to my palms. The woman pressed her face against the glass of a minivan. Her hood fell back. Blonde hair, flat iron straight, like she'd stepped out of a salon. The man tested the minivan's trunk latch. It popped open. Empty. They moved to the next car. It topped open. Empty. They moved to the next car. My Honda was 4 cars down. The cash register drawer hung open. Pennies scattered. I grabbed a rusty tire iron leaning by the door. Cold metal bit my palm. The strangers reached a pickup truck. The driver's side window exploded. Glass rained down. The man reached in, unlocked the door, and rifled through the glove box. The woman watched the road, humming, "Ain't no sunshine." Bill Withers. Off key. My keys jabbed my thigh. Could I make it to the car? The rain drowned all sound. The pickup's owner stumbled out of the restroom then. Bearded. Overalls. reeking of cheap beer. The hell? The woman moved first. Her arm snapped out. Something glinted. A syringe. The man caught the trucker as he collapsed, dragging him behind the SUV. Efficient. Practiced. I vomited quietly into a popcorn display. Back in the storage room, I dialed 911 on the landline. Dead air. The cord ended in a frayed cut. A mop bucket overflowed with brown water, floating in it. A name tag, Gus. The stranger's footsteps squelched on the wet floor. "Check the coolers," the man said. His voice was pleasant. "Dad at a barbecue calm. She's gotta be thirsty." The freezer's chill gnawed through my scrubs. I crouched behind a pallet of ice bags, tire iron raised. The door creaked open. Little pig, the woman sang. Her sneakers squeaked on the tiles. A phone lit her face. Pale, smiling, one pupil blown wide. She kicked over a stack of soda cans. My Honda's alarm suddenly blared outside. They ran, I didn't. The trucker lay sprawled by the SUV, his overalls stripped off. A fresh incision traced his ribs. Niet. Surgical. In the SUV's backseat, a cooler hummed. Stickers plastered the lid. Fragile. Human tissue. Tires screeched. A semi-truck barreled into the lot. High beams blinded. The strangers peeled away, the SUV vanishing into the storm. The trucker was still breathing. Barely. I applied pressure to his wound, my hands painted red. His wallet fell open, a photo of two kids at a fairground. Dante gurgled, "They'll come back." State troopers found me 3 hours later, still pressing the trucker's wound. They asked about the SUV. I told them. The lead trooper's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Black SUV, you say? Tinted plates?" His glove brushed my shoulder. "You're lucky." At the hospital, a nurse I'd never seen brought me coffee. Her blonde hair smelled like chemical strawberries. "Long night," she said. Her badge read L. Harris. The coffee tasted like almonds. They discharged me at dawn. My Honda sat in the parking lot, passenger door slightly open. On the seat, a syringe filled with clear liquid. A sticky note in looping script. "Next time, stay thirsty." Gus, I moved cities. Changed my name. But last week, at a rest stop outside Tucson, I heard humming. "Ain't no sunshine." A blonde woman in scrubs climbed into an SUV. The passenger stared at me. The trucker, alive, his eyes milky and distant, the license plate framed red. Proud supporter of local law enforcement. I still taste almonds every time it rains. The rain makes no sound, weaponizes the banality of roadside stops and institutional trust. The true horror isn't the strangers. It's realizing how many hands are quietly greased to make people disappear. The storm never ends. It just waits for you to pull up. The rain wasn't just falling. It was a relentless vertical river, blurring the city lights into streaks of neon watercolor. It was well past midnight, and the streets of Oakhaven were deserted, washed clean by the downpour. I stood huddled under the flimsy shelter of the bus stop. My shift at the diner, a soggy, distant memory. The number 9, last run of the night, my only way home. Finally, its headlights cut through the deluge, an old, rattling beast sighing to a halt. The doors hissed open, revealing an interior lit by flickering, jaundiced lights, empty, save for the driver, a stoic silhouette against the rain-lashed windshield. I paid my fare, the coin slick in my palm, and sank into a seat about halfway back, the damp vinyl cool against my tired legs. Relief. Soon I'd be home, dry safe. A few stops later, the bus groaned to a halt again, though no one had pressed the signal. The doors wheezed open, and he got on. He was a wreck, clothes clinging to him, dark with rain, or maybe something else. His hair, plastered to his skull, dripped onto the worn linoleum floor. He didn't look at the driver, just fumbled with some change, then lurched down the aisle. The bus was still empty. Dozens of seats to choose from. Dozens of seats to choose from. He chose the one directly behind me. I felt the seat dip as he slumped into it. A wave of cold, damp air, carrying the smell of wet wool, stale cigarettes, and something else, something faintly metallic and wrong, washed over me. The back of my neck prickled. Why right behind me? The bus lurched forward, its wipers fighting a losing battle against the storm. Then he started muttering. At first, it was just a low, guttural hum, like a broken engine trying to turn over. I tried to ignore it, fumbling for my earbuds, hoping music would drown him out. But the muttering grew, punctuated by wet, gasping breaths. The voices he rasped, so close I could feel the vibration through my seat. Oh, so loud tonight. Always louder when it rains. I risked a glance at the driver in the large rearview mirror. Nothing. Face like stone, eyes fixed on the road ahead, utterly impassive. Didn't he hear this? Didn't he care? They told me. They always tell me what to do. The man behind me continued, his voice taking on a sing-song, almost conversational tone with someone who wasn't there. Had to make it stop, you see. The screaming. My blood ran cold. I stared out the window, but the rain-streaked glass reflected only my own wide, terrified eyes and the dim outline of his head, far too close to mine. The deserted, storm-lashed streets outside suddenly seemed like a haven. His knee bumped the back of my seat. A wet cough. What they made me do. Oh, the mess. So much red in the rain. My breath hitched. I had to get off this bus, but my stop was still a good 10 minutes away. Through the worst part of town. Dark and desolate, even on a good night. Getting off early here, in this deluge, felt almost as dangerous as staying on. Almost. I tried to subtly shift, to get a better look at his reflection. His eyes, when they caught the flickering overhead light, were wide, unfocused, darting around as if seeing things I couldn't. His lips moved constantly, chapped and pale. His hands, they were clenched in his lap, knuckles white. Was that a dark stain on his cuff, or just wet fabric? The bus rattled past familiar landmarks. The closed-down cinema, the park gates locked for the night. But they felt alien, part of a world I couldn't reach. Each lurch of the bus, each hiss of the brakes, set my teeth on edge. Then, silence. The muttering stopped, abruptly, for a horrifying moment. The only sounds were the drumming rain, the rhythmic slap of the wipers, and my own heart hammering against my ribs. This was worse. The silence was a coiled spring. The seat behind me creaked. I felt a shift, a presence leaning forward. Hot, fetid breath, smelling of decay and damp earth, ghosted over my ear. They said you'd be here, he whispered, his voice no longer muttering, but clear, direct, terrifyingly sane. They said you'd understand. Did they tell you too? About the quiet ones? My hand shot out, instinctively slapping the stop request bell. The chime cut through the tense air. The man behind me let out a low, wet chuckle. It wasn't a sound of amusement. It was something else. Something broken. The bus began to slow, its air brakes hissing, before it even shuddered to a complete stop. I was up, scrambling towards the doors, my bag banging against my hip. He stood up too. I could hear the creak of his seat, the heavy shift of his weight. The doors gasped open. I didn't hesitate. I practically fell out onto the slick pavement, into the driving rain, not caring about the icy water soaking me instantly. I ran without looking back, expecting to feel his hand on my shoulder, hear his footsteps splashing in pursuit. But there was nothing, only the sound of the bus doors hissing shut, its engine revving, and then the sight of its taillights disappearing into the watery curtain of the storm, leaving me alone, gasping for breath, in the heart of the rainy, indifferent city. I made it home, eventually, drenched, shaking, locking every lock I had. I never took the number 9 bus again. I bought a bike. A few days later, a small article buried deep in the local paper caught my eye. Body found in derelict building near Route 9 terminus. Unidentified male. Cause of death unclear pending autopsy, but police weren't ruling out foul play. No mention of voices or rain or what anyone made him do. I don't know if it was him. I don't want to know. But sometimes, on stormy nights, when the rain hammers against my window, I think of that empty bus, the driver's impassive face, and the wet, chilling whisper in my ear. And the outside world, no matter how dark or stormy, feels infinitely safer than the ride home. exploring the grimy streets of downtown as I trudged towards the parking garage. Midnight had come and gone, my shift at the restaurant finally over, leaving me bone-tired and just wanting my bed. The city, usually a cacophony of noise, was eerily silent beneath the deluge, streetlights casting blurry, elongated reflections on the slick asphalt. Each footstep I took echoed slightly in the watery quiet. My car was 3 blocks away, 3 long exposed blocks. Up ahead, a narrow alley sliced between 2 darkened storefronts. A shortcut I usually avoided even in daylight. Tonight, it looked like a black maw, exhaling a damp, garbage-stale breath. As I neared its entrance, my eyes caught a flicker of movement deep within. A shape, huddled low against the brick wall, almost lost in the shadows, trying to escape the worst of the downpour. Probably just some poor soul seeking shelter. I kept my head down, quickening my pace slightly. But as I drew level with the alley's mouth, the figure shifted, a head lifted. I couldn't make out a face in the gloom and driving rain, just a dark mass. But then 2 points of light caught a distant street lamp's glow. Its eyes, they glinted, not like human eyes reflecting light, but with a strange, wet, almost phosphorescent sheen. Like an animal's eyes, but not. Unnatural. My stomach tightened. I didn't look back, just walked faster. The collar of my jacket pulled high. The drumming of the rain seemed to intensify, trying to drown out the sudden thumping of my own heart. Silly, just the rain playing tricks with the light. An overworked imagination. Splosh. I froze for a microsecond. A footstep. From the alley. Distinct from the rhythm of the rain. I started walking again. Faster now. Almost a jog. Keys clutched in my fist. Knuckles white. Splash. Pause. Splash. The footsteps behind me. Echoing mine, but with a slight deliberate delay. Not hurried. Not frantic. Measured, matching my accelerated pace. My breath hitched. I risked a quick glance over my shoulder. A figure had detached itself from the alley's darkness. A tall, indistinct shape shrouded by the rain. Head bowed, already 20 feet behind me, and closing the distance with an unnervingly fluid, almost gliding gait. I couldn't see its face, only the relentless forward movement. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my veins. This wasn't random. This wasn't in my head. The parking garage was still a block and a half away. An eternity. I broke into a run, shoes slapping against the flooded pavement, sending up sprays of dirty water. The splashing footsteps behind me instantly matched my pace. Closer now. The rhythm more urgent. No shouting, no words. Just the relentless, watery pursuit. Each street lamp I passed felt like a brief, inadequate sanctuary before plunging back into the rain-swept darkness. The buildings on either side seemed to lean in, trapping me in this nightmarish corridor. The entrance to the garage loomed, a dim concrete square. My key fob was slippery in my trembling hand. I fumbled, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Splash, splash. Closer. So much closer. I could almost feel its presence, a cold wave of intent. The car's lights blinked in response to the fob. I yanked the driver's side door open, the interior light a feeble beacon. As I threw myself inside, a shape materialized at the edge of my peripheral vision, right beside the car. A hand, pale, slick with rain, fingers unnaturally long, reached for the door handle just as I slammed it shut and hit the locks. The thud of the locks engaging was deafening in the sudden confines of the car. Through the rain-streaked driver's side window, I saw it. The figure stood there, inches away. Its face was still mostly obscured by shadow and the relentless downpour. But those eyes, they were fixed on me, glinting with that same horrible wet luminescence. It didn't try the handle. It didn't bang on the window. It just stood there, watching, its head tilted slightly, as if curious. A low sound, almost a chuckle, but wet, gurgling, vibrated through the glass. My fingers, clumsy with terror, finally found the ignition. The engine roared to life, a jarring intrusion in the watery silence between us. I slammed the car into reverse, tires squealing on the wet concrete, and shot out of the parking spot. As I wrenched the wheel and sped towards the exit ramp, I looked in the rearview mirror. The figure hadn't moved. It remained standing where my car had been, a dark, rain-soaked silhouette, those awful eyes still faintly glinting, until the ramp took me down and out into the relative anonymity of the stormy streets. I drove for an hour that night, not towards home, just away, eventually shaking. I pulled into an all-night gas station, the bright fluorescent lights feeling like a shield. I never saw the figure again. There were no reports of anything unusual in the papers the next day. Just another rainy night in the city. But I don't walk alone after dark anymore if I can help it. And every time it rains, every time I pass a dark alley, I feel that same icy grip of fear. I see those glinting eyes, hear those echoing, splashing footsteps, and I wonder what it was, what it wanted, and what would have happened if my keys had fumbled for just a second longer. Some things, once seen in the rain, never quite wash away. The old Clarrington Arms had always been in a symphony of decay. Drafty windows rattled even on calm nights. Pipes groaned like dying beasts, and the scent of damp plaster was a permanent resident. I'd learned to live with its quirks. The rent was cheap, and my tiny apartment, for all its flaws, was home. Tonight, though the building seemed to be dissolving around me, the rain hammering against my bedroom window like angry fists, that's when I noticed the new water stain on the ceiling, almost directly above my bed. A dark, amoeba-like patch, slowly expanding. Not unusual for the Clarrington, especially during a downpour. I sighed, grabbed the trusty plastic bucket from the closet and positioned it underneath. Drip. Pause. Drip. Standard procedure. But as I lay in bed, trying to read, the rhythm of the dripping felt off. It wasn't the usual watery plink. This was slower, more viscous. Fuck. Pause. Fuck. And the water collecting in the bucket, I leaned over, peering into the dim interior. It wasn't clear. It was a murky, distinctly reddish brown. A knot tightened in my stomach. Rusty pipes, maybe. The building was ancient. But the color was too organic. And there was a smell, faint at first, then growing stronger, overriding the usual mustiness. A coppery, faintly metallic tang. Like old pennies or something else. My upstairs neighbor, Mr. Albright, a quiet elderly man who mostly kept to himself, hadn't made a sound for days. Usually, I'd hear the muffled drone of his television in the evenings, or the occasional creak of his footsteps pacing overhead. But for the past 3, maybe 4 days, silence. Complete, unbroken silence from apartment 4B. The stain on the ceiling continued its slow, inexorable creep. The fucking drips became more frequent. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was nothing. But the reddish-brown water in the bucket, the spreading stain, the unsettling quiet from upstairs, it all coalesced into a heavy dread that settled in my chest. I couldn't sleep. Every thwack from the bucket seemed to echo the silence from Mr. Albright's apartment. The metallic smell grew thicker, more cloying. I imagined old pipes bursting, spewing rust-filled water. But the color wasn't just rust, it was deeper, with an almost syrupy consistency when it hit the plastic. Around 2 a.m., a small chunk of plaster, saturated with the repulsive liquid, detached from the ceiling and fell with a soft, wet smack onto my nightstand, narrowly missing my book. The reddish-brown ooze spread quickly across the painted wood. That was it. I couldn't pretend anymore. This wasn't normal. My hands were trembling as I pulled on a robe. The building superintendent, old Henderson, was notoriously useless and probably drunk or asleep. Calling him would be pointless until morning. I had to know. The hallway outside my apartment was dim, lit by a single flickering bulb. The silence from upstairs was absolute, pressing down. I climbed the creaking stairs to the 4th floor, my heart hammering. The metallic odor was stronger here, seeping from under Mr. Albright's door. I knocked. "Mr. Albright? Are you okay in there?" My voice sounded small, shaky. No answer, only the drumming rain against the hallway window. I knocked again, louder. "Mr. Albright." Silence. I reached for the doorknob, expecting it to be locked. It turned easily in my hand. The door wasn't latched. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled dread, I pushed it open. The apartment was dark. The smell hit me like a physical blow, overpowering, coppery, Swedish, and foul. I fumbled for the light switch just inside the door. My fingers found it, flicked it up. The single overhead bulb cast a stark, unforgiving light on the small living room. And on the floor, directly in the center of the room, lying on a threadbare rug, was Mr. Albright, or what was left of him. The scene wasn't something out of a slasher film. It was quieter, sadder, and infinitely more disturbing for its stillness. He'd been there for days, and directly above the worst of it, on the floorboards already darkened and stained, was a large, saturated patch, the source of the leak, the source of the reddish-brown horror dripping into my bedroom. My stomach heaved. I backed out of the apartment. A strangled sob caught in my throat, and fumbled for my phone, dialing 911, the numbers blurring through my tears. The police, the paramedics, the coroner. They were a grim procession through the Clarington Arms that night. Turns out Mr. Albright had a ruptured ulcer, a catastrophic internal bleed. Alone, no one to help. He'd simply bled out, quietly, for days, his life seeping into the floorboards, then through my ceiling, drop by viscous, reddish-brown drop. I moved out a week later. I couldn't stay, couldn't sleep in that bedroom, couldn't erase the image of that spreading stain, the sound of those thick drops, the awful coppery smell of a life ending just a few feet above my head. Now, in my new apartment, every time it rains, every time I hear a dripping tap or see a faint watermark on a ceiling, my heart clenches. The horror wasn't a ghost or a monster. It was the quiet, mundane tragedy of a lonely death, a forgotten neighbor, and the grim reality of decay, literally seeping through the cracks of a crumbling building, one reddish-brown drop at a time. The last drops of rain may be fading from your window, or perhaps the storm still rages outside your own sanctuary. But the echoes of these 7 nights, they linger, don't they? Deep within the architecture of your fear. I warned you this was a journey into profound dread, a tapestry woven from genuine despair and unsettling truths. And those final twists, they have a way of embedding themselves, like splinters of ice, deep within the mind. Which tale clawed its way into your deepest fears tonight? Which chilling revelation caught you most unawares, sending that shiver down your spine? Unleash your thoughts, your theories, your own encounters with the inexplicable. In the comments below, the shadows are always listening, and your stories fuel our dark inspiration. If you've savored this descent into true horror, if the unsettling nature of these events has resonated with you, then ensure you subscribe to Nightmare True Horror. Cast your mark of approval by liking this video so that others, those kindred spirits who also seek the thrill of the terrifyingly true, may find their way to our chilling narratives. Until the next storm gathers, and the darkness calls your name with fresh tales of terror, sleep tight, or perhaps after what you've witnessed, don't.